I knew something was off the moment I pulled up to my cabin and saw a family of 5 unloading luggage like they owned the place. "This is private property," I said, stepping out of my truck. "Who are you?" The dad froze, holding a cooler mid-air. "We booked this cabin on Mountain Stay for the week. Said the keys would be under the mat." I blinked. "You mean to tell me someone rented my cabin without asking?" He pulled out a printed reservation. Sure enough, there was my address and a listing name, Rustic Ridge Retreat, hosted by Donna. Donna Everlie, HOA board secretary. The most insufferable woman in the entire neighborhood, with her fake smile and clipboard full of fines. She'd reported me 6 times for excessive leaf accumulation. Once in May, I told the family it was clearly a scam and helped them rebook elsewhere. They were surprisingly understanding, but I was fuming. I owned that cabin outright, bought it 10 years ago before the HOA expanded their reach into the mountain zone. I never listed it anywhere. But Donna, she was on the tourism engagement committee. And now she was running a side hustle using my property. I drove straight back down the mountain into town, parked outside the HOA office and waited. Sure enough, Donna pulled up 20 minutes later in her usual beige SUV, wearing her oversized sunglasses and a scarf like she was heading to brunch in Paris. "Hey, Donna," I called out. She flinched but pasted on a smile. "Zayden, what a surprise. Everything okay?" I walked right up to her. "Funny thing, I just found strangers trying to stay in my cabin, said they rented it online. The listing had your name." Her fake smile twitched. "That's odd." "Maybe it's a typo, cut the act. You used my cabin without permission. That's not a typo, that's trespassing and fraud." She looked around nervously, then whispered, "Let's not make a scene." "Oh no, let's definitely make a scene," I said louder than necessary. "Let's talk to the president. I'm sure Gregory will love to hear how you're running side hustles using properties that don't belong to you." Gregory Palmer, HOA president. The guy who once fined a veteran for flying a slightly faded flag. He and Donna were tight, too tight. Rumors floated around about late-night committee meetings at her place. I never paid attention until now. "I'm sure this is a misunderstanding," she said, voice shaky. I leaned in. "Then let's clear it up, right now." She hesitated, then walked stiffly toward the building. I followed, already pulling out my phone. I had pictures of the family, their booking confirmation, even the listing with her name on it. I wasn't about to let this slide. But when we walked into the HOA lounge, there he was, Gregory, already sitting behind the desk with a guilty look on his face. He didn't expect to see me, and even worse, the monitor on his desk still showed a Mountain Stay dashboard with my cabin page open. Gregory flinched when he saw me, like a kid caught stealing from the cookie jar. The monitor in front of him showed the listing page, complete with my cabin's photos I never uploaded, and a calendar marked with other bookings. His hand scrambled for the mouse, but I stepped in and laid my phone on the desk. "Don't bother closing it," I said. "That family up there showed me everything. You've got my property listed as a rental under Donna's name, and you're managing it from here." Donna edged toward the door, but I shifted just enough to block her path. Gregory cleared his throat. "Zayden, this isn't what it looks like." "Then tell me what it looks like," I said. "Because from where I'm standing, this looks like theft, digital fraud, and illegal subletting. On HOA time, using HOA resources." Donna folded her arms tightly. "We were trying to generate funds for the community." "You've never attended a single monthly meeting, so maybe if you did, you'd know we were discussing new revenue streams." I narrowed my eyes. "Revenue from properties you don't own," Gregory leaned forward. "Listen, it's not like we kept the money. The funds were routed to the HOA general account. All of it's traceable." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded paper, the property deed. "This cabin is mine, not under HOA jurisdiction. It predates your incorporation by 3 years. You don't have the right to step foot on it, let alone rent it out." Donna's jaw tightened. "There was a vote last spring. We annexed the Hill properties." "No, you proposed annexation," I corrected, "and it was struck down. I have the meeting minutes from that day. I know because I sent a letter objecting and it was read into the record." Gregory stood up now. We thought you wouldn't care, you don't live there full time and the place was just sitting empty. You thought I wouldn't care, you two broke into my place, photographed it and listed it online for profit. That's not just unethical, that's criminal. Donna's voice shook. We had a spare key from the emergency lockbox. It's not like we broke a window. You used an emergency key, I said slowly, to illegally enter a private residence and convert it into a business. That's unlawful entry, forgery, and wire fraud. And if you don't think I've already contacted the sheriff, the door opened behind us. Deputy Laura Keene stepped in with a clipboard under one arm and a body camera blinking on her vest. She nodded at me without a word and turned directly to Gregory. We received your call, Mr. Harlow, she said. You filed a report about unauthorized use of property. That's right, I said, and I've got all the documentation ready. She walked up to the desk and glanced at the monitor, then at Gregory. Is this your workstation? Yes, he said quickly. But this isn't. We'll need to seize this computer, she said flatly. We have a warrant to search digital records related to fraudulent property rentals. You can hand it over now or we can escalate. Donna took a shaky step back. This is outrageous. You don't even know the whole story. Deputy Keene raised an eyebrow. I know enough. We received a tip from a family who showed up to a cabin only to find the real owner confronting them. Then we traced the Mountain Stay account to an IP address registered to this office. I'd say we know plenty. She turned to me. Mr. Harlow, do you have keys to the property? We'll need to verify access wasn't duplicated or tampered with. I handed her my key ring. Every lock was changed last year. I've got receipts from the locksmith. She handed the ring to another officer who had come in behind her. Log and verify these. We'll have forensics compare the keys to the lockbox copies stored here. Gregory sat back down, deflated. This doesn't have to go this far. We can settle this internally. You want compensation, we can arrange that. I shook my head. You're not buying your way out. How many other properties have you done this with? Donna looked panicked now. Just yours. That's it. We only needed a few bookings to test the model. It was supposed to be temporary. Then why are there 6 different reservation entries on your calendar? I asked. She didn't answer. Deputy Keene pulled a folder from her clipboard. We've obtained logs from Mountain Stay. The account associated with the listings shows transfers to a private account under the name Everlie Community Consulting. Care to explain that? Donna's face went pale. It was a holding account. I was going to transfer everything to the HOA. Gregory jumped in. She was acting independently. I didn't authorize any of that. Oh, really? I said. Then what's your signature doing on the vendor approval form she submitted last month? He froze. Keene nodded to the officer beside her. Detain both for further questioning. We'll finish processing the office and secure all digital records. As they were escorted out, Donna turned back to me. You've just tanked everything we were building. This was going to save the neighborhood. No, I said. You were building a grift and you got caught. That's not my fault. That's yours. After they were gone, I sat down with Keene and handed over everything: emails, printed listings, screenshots, even a thumb drive with video footage of the family arriving and explaining what happened. She assured me the DA would be reviewing the case personally. Before I left, I walked over to the community bulletin board by the front door. There was a flyer still pinned there from last month's HOA newsletter, boasting about new revenue strategies to support landscaping and security enhancements. I pulled it down. Time for a little landscaping of our own, I muttered. The next morning, I filed a formal petition with the county to have the HOA's jurisdiction redrawn, removing the entire hillside zone, including my cabin, from their reach entirely. I also filed a civil suit for damages and unauthorized use of private property. It wasn't about the money. It was about making sure this never happened again. By the end of the week, word had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Residents were furious, especially the ones who'd been fined for absurd reasons while their dues were being funneled into shady side projects. A group formed a recall committee. Petitions were drafted. A special vote was announced. And every time someone passed me on the street, they gave a quiet nod. Some even stopped to shake my hand. They'd finally seen through the curtain, and the show was over. 2 weeks after Donna and Gregory were escorted out of the HOA office, the special election date was posted on the community board outside the library. The flyer didn't mention their names, but everyone knew what it was about. Residents now avoided saying HOA board without sneering. The trust was gone, and the anger had settled into something colder, organized. I'd spent the time since then quietly working with my attorney, Maya Lattimore, a former city prosecutor who now ran a small private practice in town. She was sharp, fast-talking, and didn't blink once when I laid out everything. They were laundering public funds through a fake consulting company, she said, tapping her pen against a folder. And they used your private property as the centerpiece of the operation. That's not just civil. That's criminal enterprise territory. I nodded once. How far can we push this? As far as they went, she said, and they went deep. She wasn't exaggerating. The forensic analysis of the HOA's internal servers had uncovered more than just the mountain stay listings. There were spreadsheets showing dozens of proposed properties, some already photographed, some with forged owner signatures attached. Most had never been rented, but it was clear this wasn't a one-off. They were ramping up, Maya said. Your property was the pilot. She filed formal charges on my behalf: unauthorized use of property, misappropriation of funds, and conspiracy to commit fraud. But that wasn't all. The state attorney general's office had taken interest. It turned out Donna's Everly Community Consulting had been registered under 2 different addresses in 2 counties, and both had received suspicious wire transfers from unrelated HOA accounts. One county flagged it during an audit. The AG's office suspected Donna had been running a similar scam in a different neighborhood 5 years ago, one that mysteriously dissolved its HOA right before a lawsuit was filed. So now it was bigger than just our mountain community. Back in the neighborhood, things were shifting. The recall committee had gained momentum. Yard signs popped up reading "Take Back the Ridge" and "No More Hidden Agendas." People who rarely spoke to each other were organizing carpools to the upcoming vote. The board had tried to appoint an interim president, but the candidate withdrew after learning the extent of the investigation. Then something unexpected happened. I got a letter. It wasn't postmarked, just slipped under the door of my main house in town. The envelope was unmarked, but inside was a single sheet of paper listing 6 names: 3 board members, 2 committee chairs, and someone named Dylan Cross, who I didn't recognize. Next to each name were dates, wire amounts, and meeting times. Some of them matched calendar invites recovered from Gregory's office. If the list was real, it meant more people had known, maybe even profited. I took it straight to Maya. Anonymous tip, I said, handing it over. She scanned it quickly. This guy Dylan, finance chair. Not on anyone's radar yet. Could he be the one who set up the accounts? Possibly. Could also be the one who backs out first if we apply pressure. She made one call to the AG's office, and within 2 days, Dylan Cross was subpoenaed. He walked into the county courthouse with his lawyer and left with a tentative immunity deal. His testimony confirmed everything. Donna and Gregory had pitched the scheme as a community income generator and promised to distribute profits equitably once the model stabilized. Dylan admitted he helped create the shadow budget and approved the fake vendor invoices. Did he know they were using private properties without consent? I asked Meyer after the deposition. He claims he thought they had permission, she said. But he's turning over email chains that prove otherwise. He's the reason they got into your cabin. He signed off on the locksmith request. I didn't say anything. You still want to press civil charges? She asked. Every last one. Meanwhile, the community election approached. Donna and Gregory hadn't been seen since the police took them in for questioning. They'd made bail, but the court ordered them to stay off HOA property until the investigation concluded. Still, their names kept coming up. One resident, Mrs. Feldman, found a receipt in her mailbox for a landscape improvement fee she'd supposedly paid last year. Only she never wrote the check. The signature didn't match hers. That triggered a full audit of the HOA's finances. By the third week, the audit firm hired by the county reported that over $70,000 in miscategorized expenditures had moved through the HOA accounts over the past 18 months. Most of it was labeled under community engagement projects, a category Gregory had created shortly after becoming president. Another footnote in the report, a payment to a shell company registered in Nevada. The name, Silver Ridge Development Partners, I traced it down myself. The company had one listed officer, Donna and Gregory. I brought it to Maya. She brought it to the state investigators. 3 days later, Donna's bail was revoked. Gregory followed the next week after they found emails showing he'd used his position to suppress dissenting votes during last year's annexation proposal. He'd tampered with the minutes and instructed the secretary to mark several resident objections as non-compliant submissions. I didn't celebrate. Not yet. The day of the special election arrived on a cold Thursday morning. I walked to the community center and found a line wrapped halfway around the building. People stood with coffee in hand, not saying much, just waiting, focused. Inside, the ballot was simple. A yes or no vote to dissolve the current board and replace it with a temporary oversight committee with newly nominated members until a full election could be held in the spring. By noon, the results were in. 91% voted yes. The board was gone. The oversight committee was sworn in less than an hour later. I declined when they asked me to serve. I didn't want to be part of the system. I just wanted to make sure no one else got hurt by it again. Later that evening, I returned to the cabin. The porch light was still out from when I'd unplugged it after the incident. I stepped inside and walked through the rooms, checking each one. Everything was quiet, untouched. But as I passed the stone fireplace, something caught my eye behind the firewood stack. A small black camera, wedged between two logs. It wasn't mine. I pulled it out and checked the brand. A cheap wireless model, battery-operated. Taped to the back was a note with a date written in red marker. 2 weeks before the family had arrived, they'd been recording. Not just the guests, me too. I brought it to Meyer in the morning. "Where'd you find it?" she asked, tucked behind the firewood, hidden pretty well. She examined the casing. "We'll hand it over to the investigators. If they recorded people without consent in a private residence, that adds another layer." By the end of the week, the DA had filed a new charge, unlawful surveillance. The case was growing by the day, and with every new piece of evidence, more residents came forward with their own stories. Unauthorized inspections, mysterious fees, vague citations that disappeared after someone paid in cash. It wasn't just my cabin. It had never been just my cabin, but it had been the first one they got caught using, and that was enough. Enough to bring the whole rotten structure down. The footage on the hidden camera was worse than anyone expected. Maya called me into her office on a rainy Wednesday, her eyes sharper than usual, her desk cluttered with legal pads and manila folders bristling with flagged documents. She didn't say hello, just pointed to the monitor. "Watch this." The video showed Donna walking through my cabin's main room, gesturing like a realtor giving a tour. Gregory followed behind, phone in hand, occasionally snapping photos. They spoke casually, like they were preparing for an open house. Then a man I didn't recognize entered the frame. Younger, maybe mid-30s, with a pressed blazer and a clipboard under his arm, his voice was clear. "You're certain the owner's out of town?" Donna didn't hesitate. "He's never here, lives down in town, doesn't even check his email." Gregory laughed. "We've got this place until at least the end of next season. No one's going to notice." The man nodded. "All right, then we'll proceed with the walkthrough. If all goes well, the investors will close next month." Maya paused the video. "Investors," I frowned. They were selling it, not just renting it, Zayden. They were using your property as collateral. That guy's from a venture group based in Nashville. He's already testified. Said Donna and Gregory pitched your cabin along with 4 others as part of a rural luxury package for short-term corporate retreats. I sat down hard. They tried to sell a cabin they didn't own. Maya nodded once. They forged documents, title, inspection reports, even a power of attorney authorization. You're not the only victim, but you were the centerpiece. The cabin was supposed to be the flagship property for the portfolio. Why me? Because your cabin sits just outside the original HOA boundary. It gave them wiggle room to claim ambiguity. And because your deed was filed under your LLC, they assumed you wouldn't notice the paperwork manipulation unless you were actively watching the registry. Which obviously you were. I stared at the screen, then grabbed the folder marked Everlie Holdings. Inside were copies of the forged documents, my signature clumsily traced. The notary stamp was fake to a woman who died 6 years ago. They were brazen, I muttered. They were desperate, Maya replied, and they had help. She slid over another folder. Inside were emails between Donna, Gregory, and 2 county clerks, one of whom had recently resigned. The correspondence was cautious, but implicated both clerks in backdating property filings and misplacing objections during the previous year's annexation debate. All of this has gone to the state AG, she said, and the FBI, I blinked. The Bureau, Maya leaned back. Wire fraud across state lines, forgery of federally recognized notarizations, attempted real estate fraud involving financial institutions. You're no longer dealing with just local charges. The feds are building a racketeering case. I sat quietly for a moment, processing. What happens to the people who helped them? I asked. Maya tapped a pen against her palm. The clerks will be indicted. So will 3 former board members who approved the forged permits. And the finance officer, Dylan, he's still cooperating, but his immunity only protects him from the original fraud. The new charges, that's a different ball game. And what do they want from me now? Testimony. Your cabin was the keystone. You were the first to uncover it. Your cooperation is essential to the federal case. I nodded. Tell them I'll be there. Outside the courthouse a week later, protesters gathered, not against me, against the HOA. The crowd had grown from angry residents to local media, then state-level news crews. The story had caught fire. Mountain HOA accused of real estate scam was the headline plastered across the state news network. I testified under oath, laying out everything: how I discovered the family at my cabin, how Donna tried to play it off, how Gregory had the listing up on his screen when I walked in, how the hidden camera revealed their plan to sell what they didn't own, how the forged documents bore my name. The grand jury handed down 12 indictments. Donna and Gregory were charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, forgery, criminal use of forged instruments, and attempted property theft. The federal charges included wire fraud, interstate conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. The 2 clerks were charged with official misconduct and falsification of public records. Then came the sentencing. Donna was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison, with no chance of parole for at least 5. Gregory received 9, having been the primary orchestrator and the one who attempted to destroy digital evidence after being confronted. The cooperating board members received suspended sentences, probation, and were barred from holding public or HOA office ever again. The judge's statement was blunt. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a calculated abuse of authority perpetrated under the guise of community improvement. It is the duty of this court to remind all governing bodies, no matter how small, that the law applies equally to them. After the sentencing, things didn't just settle, they shifted. The HOA was dissolved permanently. The Oversight Committee voted unanimously to distribute all remaining funds back to residents after administrative costs. The properties previously targeted for annexation were officially removed from any future governance attempts. County records were corrected. A full audit was made public. And me? I received a formal written apology from the county commissioner's office. My name was cleared, and my property was flagged in the database as exempt from HOA inclusion due to its pre-incorporation status and the fraudulent attempt to absorb it. But that wasn't the best part. The community, once passive and isolated, had become something else entirely. Neighbors who'd barely nodded at one another now held quarterly meetings not to govern, but to stay informed. Without the HOA's oppressive grip, people began organizing their own volunteer projects, trail cleanups, cabin watch programs, even a rotating firewood exchange for the colder months. The best moment came in early spring, when I found a hand-painted sign posted at the trailhead near my driveway. It read, "Welcome to Ridgeview, a free community, no boards, no bull." It had been signed by over 50 residents. Later that week, I stood on my porch watching the sun dip behind the ridge. The cabin was quiet, secure, mine again. A truck pulled up. Maya stepped out holding a small box. "Got something for you," she said, handing it over. Inside was the camera we'd recovered, wiped clean, rendered useless. "I figured you deserved to toss it in the fireplace yourself," she said. I did exactly that. The flames crackled as the plastic warped and curled. I watched it burn, not with anger but with finality. Justice had been served. Not just for me, but for everyone who'd ever been bullied, fined, or silenced by a corrupt HOA drunk on power. And the next time someone tried to pull something like that, they'd have an entire mountain standing in their way.